Well, welcome everybody to the latest and greatest episode of Heighten Your Sixth Sense with Sean Green. I got the great Tiana Davis from Chicago by way of California here today. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's a PhD in value-driven leadership. She's an author of two amazing books, Eight Essential Steps to Inspire Others and Build a Thriving Workforce, The Servant of Leadership and Advantage, and the Feedback Blueprint, Unlocking the Power of Constructive Insights. She's made a massive impact in human resource and recruitment world around the world, nationally and around the world, leaving a great legacy for her mentees and colleagues to follow. She's a chief people officer, not
That's okay.
people officer, author, and coaching of leaders. Use empathy and mentorship to enhance employee well-being and organizational culture. So, Miss Tiana, I know that was a little bit about you. So tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and just how things are going for you right now.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think you kind of covered a lot of it. I'm a mom, a wife, an employee, and a little bit of an entrepreneur, a little bit and with being an author, and just trying to create the change that I want to see in the world. And as an HR practitioner, of course, my day job, I do the things that I really love and helping employees and leaders, do the best and be the best in what they do and drive positive company culture. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And in terms of what I like to do on the outside of that is, I love to travel the world and learn from other cultures and have new experiences that, are outside of the US. So um, that's, enjoy life.
Okay. So kind of I want to take a step back a little bit, kind of tell the audience a little bit about your early years, kind of where you started, what kind of led you to this path, what influence you had in your younger years that kind of got
Mhm.
you on this track.
I don't think it's just one thing. I've had really good mentors along the way. And I've always been open to learn. And so I've always had a curiosity around why things work, how they work. Is this the best process? This the best tool? Why are we doing it this way versus another way? And
Hmm.
um, I can't say that I, originally started and said 3 years from now I'm going to be here, 5 years I'm going to be there, and I just didn't have that sort of plan. But I knew that I wanted to harness what things that I knew I did well, and the analytics was always very intriguing and a comfort zone for me, and
Hmm.
through my trajectory, it just kind of evolved from there. But I kind of had this weird path of being a generalist or starting off in benefits and comp and then moving into recruiting and different aspects of it. And, the journey just kind of took off from there. I've worked in several industries and I've enjoyed that. I've had great mentorship
Hmm.
that really allowed me to grow outside of the traditional HR job description, which has afforded me many opportunities that a traditional HR practitioner wouldn't have. And marrying that with, academic achievements, it has really
Hmm.
opened doors beyond my expectations. And so I say, do what you love to do and
Yeah.
and be open to learning and curious around that because I think that if there's any secret sauce in this whole experience, it was just something as simple as that. Or someone would give me a project and say, oh, Tania, can you, it might not have been high on my list, um, but I didn't say no, and I said okay, if I didn't know it I would learn it. And I was open to the experience. And
Yeah.
there's something about saying, okay, I'll give it a try versus, well, that's not in my job description. And the moment
Yeah.
you say that's not in my job description, you kind of eliminate yourself from having broader opportunities. And so,
Hmm.
um, I still take the same path. I try to tap into different thought leaders that have different skill sets. I try to surround myself with executive professionals that are doing things that I aspire to do or aspire to learn. And, I'm always in a continuous learning mode. And
Yeah.
I think, those components of having a career plan and looking at a career trajectory, that's very those things are very important to have.
Yeah, exactly. So that you believe that created all of that you learn, from just kind of talking to the learning from different people. Because it seems like you always are reaching up
Hmm.
to learn from different people that has maybe say a different
Hmm.
learning aspect or different knowledge than you. And so you
Hmm.
seem like you're reaching up always. So that means
Hmm.
that that's always allowing you to grow. But then when people come to you with challenges for a different project, you're not afraid to like, oh, this you're not gonna say, oh, I don't know that you open to like, I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah.
step into this challenge.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm the guinea pig, but it's it's a fun ride. It's really interesting. Earlier in my career, I'll never forget this. There was this position I thought I was a great candidate for to be promoted into, and I was not selected. And at first I was just so, I was like, why didn't they select me? This was my job. I know it was my
Mhm.
job, and I'm going on and on and on why I wasn't selected, right? And my mentor at the time said, well, let me see the job description. And I gave her the job description, and she said, okay, Tania, highlight all the skills that you have. For sure, you are a 10. And I went through and highlighted on the piece of paper. And she said, and highlight the things that you will need to learn. Over the course of the first year, and so I highlighted those things. And visually, it was clear that I was not ready for that job. And so I think there's also just kind of having self-awareness of your capabilities of, okay, what am I really good at? What am I learning? And always assessing that. I took away from that experience that, you should always be preparing for what is next. And in order to do that, you need to know what's in the definitions of what is needed, whatever that job is. So, get a hold of a description and understand what are your capabilities at that time and what is it that you need to learn. And then the real work is working with your team to get exposure in those areas. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes that's where, we might not have all the opportunities because we're not exposed to where those sort of skill building opportunities exist. And so I would proactively raise my hand or look for those opportunities to learn things that I didn't have at that time, but I knew
Mhm.
that, it's something I needed to learn to move to a different role. So from that aspect, being very deliberate is important, and also, finding champions around
Yeah.
you, that will kind of help you guide you along the way, as well as help you get through some doors. And so, that's very important too. And in that space, having the self-awareness around, hearing feedback, sometimes it's just
Mhm.
that's hard to do, but it's a very, I say feedback is a gift because once you have it, you know at what to do. You either,
Mhm.
take it in and make change, or you can discount it and say, yeah, that's what you feel only. But at least you have awareness around where there are some opportunities. And so continuously seek feedback from sources that you trust.
Yeah.
Um, that
That's the
will,
whole team.
mm-hmm, exactly.
Learn from the have you have smart people around you with the different
Right.
specialized knowledge and different levels. Even though
Mm-hmm.
you all everybody kind of has the same goal in mind, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody's knowledge and understanding is different. So and then
You're
like you said,
constantly learning, either learning
mhm,
what to do or what not to do.
exactly. And so with the HR and recruitment, what do you love? I know you love it. I can see it in your all over you. So what do you love most about the human resource recruitment?
So I'll answer that two ways. Overall, in terms of HR, human resources, um, I enjoy how HR truly can be a force in an organization to help people be their best. Recruitment is a component of
Okay.
that. I enjoy watching someone come into an organization and watching them grow, or seeing someone in a role and move through their career trajectory, sometimes seeing past their limitations, or they might not see what you see, right? I really enjoy that. And also just helping organizations understand the importance of company culture and creating an environment where everyone belongs. And I think part of my personal value system is, creating environments where everyone feel they belong and they have a place and they can add value. It does take, a multitude of perspectives and backgrounds to really create innovative solutions for organizations or, drive, if it's whatever the organization is, drive change in a positive way.
You're correct. So like it's the go back to like to the mastermind. You have a group of people, all different, different areas, different cultures,
Hmm.
but they have the same goal in mind, but they all different levels and they all pulling together and you learn from each other and you some I'm sure everybody don't always don't agree on everything. I'm sure there's always be some disagreement sometime, but yeah, at the end you have a common goal and
Yeah.
you feeding off each other, you taking the feedback and you come back to the table and you starting over and you make sure that the process, the end goal is gonna be a good result.
Yeah, and I've seen
Mm-hmm.
companies do that in a phenomenal way. One of the
Mm-hmm.
companies I worked for, it was just fascinating. You had this convergence of talent, and everyone kind of comes with different backgrounds, and you put their ideas on the table, and some of the best outcomes came out of those conversations, and the rigor of conversations around, we should do it
Mm-hmm.
this way, no that way, and there's a lot of wisdom in that as well. Yeah, I agree with that.
So I know you work with a lot of big companies, consult, Johnson Publishing, Harpo Productions, HBR, Rise. Tell me about some of those experiences you learned from those different. I know those all different industries, correct?
It was, Harpo is, was like Disneyland. I shouldn't say it, but it was great. I mean, like I mean, I enjoy going to all jobs, but it was just great going into an environment where the energy and charge and mission was just so strong, and the level of respect for the talent in each other. Harpo, the hardest working employees I had ever worked with, and
Very, very positive environment, I imagine.
yeah, I mean,
Mm,
someone once mentioned, it was like we were doing life together, and that's really what it was like. We raised
that's
our
great.
families together, and we went through marriages, divorces in some cases, raised our kids, and um, it was just a great place for, people to come in and do their best work. And, every from the person that swept the floor to the person that signed the checks, everybody worked hard there.
Yeah.
And it was just so you felt gratification around the work. You felt proud of what the goodness that you were helping put out into the universe, whether you supported on the business side,
Hmm.
whether you were the person signing the checks or you were the person doing the hiring or the actual producing staff itself. There, everyone had a role to play to make the operation tick. And of course, there's only one Oprah Winfrey, and
Yeah, exactly.
she really created a phenomenal place. She had a president, Tim Bennett, who I learned a lot about. Actually, that's really where I learned about servant leadership, and his style of leadership was very inspiring. And I mean, just the little nuggets I still use and take, that I took away from the work experience. But he was a great leader, I
Hmm.
think, for the organization, and really modeled the behaviors that you would want to see um, in a leader at that level. Johnson
That's incredible.
Publishing, is amazing. I grew up reading Ebony magazine, and grew up hearing all about fashion fair, the fashion shows, and so um, it was great kind of being within an environment that it was so familiar to my
Hmm.
upbringing. Working with the talent there, a lot of strong talent, brilliant young professionals and seasoned executives, all working towards making sure messaging was good and positive and strong. And, um, that was an experience that I would cherish, for a long time. And so, looking at, kind of the other organizations, whether it's consulting or tech,
Yeah.
all have their different nuance to it. And, just really good organizations to learn and grow and contribute some really good work.
That's really good. So one thing that I know you mentioned, it's in the title of your book, the servant leadership. So
Mhm.
I mean, that obviously means a lot to you because you learned it from the Tim Bennett, what he said was a great man, great leader. So, like, what did that, how did that impact you? Why does that mean so much to you?
It was Tim had this style of, he wasn't the loudest person in the room, but it's almost like, when he spoke, he just had that air of respect.
Mm-hmm.
um, and the way he led, right? It wasn't about it wasn't from ego. It wasn't from it was and that could have easily been the case. You're running the company of, the most powerful person, one of the most powerful, people in entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
and he had such a humble spirit and approach, and his style, in my observation, was always working towards the greater good and
Mm-hmm.
helping those around him have success and developing, you have, all these type A personalities, in a good way, reporting to you, the executive team, and he was able to get the best I think, out of all of us. Um, and in doing that, he didn't compromise his values, but he was able to authentically connect with folks, help them be successful in what they do best, and did not feel he needed to stifle that. And I really didn't appreciate that until you start
Yeah.
seeing other leadership styles. And having had that experience, it made my expectations so much higher. And it
Yeah.
and it's yeah, and not
Mm-hmm.
everyone can do that. And
Yeah.
so he was able to do it. And he led from wanting to understand. And some leaders have, their biases are so strong, it just clouds their judgment, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that as well, but that just wasn't his style. And uh, you know, he was a trusted confidant, right? And I just remember saying, I want to be that kind of leader. I want to be the kind of leader that can coach and provide good feedback in the best interest of that
Yeah.
individual and still maintain their confidentiality and
Mm-hmm.
maintain the integrity of my beliefs. And he just modeled what a good leader, a servant leader, um, is like. And so I just learned a lot from him. I would like literally look forward to our meetings. Yeah, I would learn something all the time, and I would always see books on his credenza of things that he
Yeah.
was always, you know, um, trying to stay on top of and read. And it's like, wow, this person is in this position, and he's still seeking knowledge to understand and grow
Mm-hmm.
as a leader. And that, at least for me, was inspiring. And
Mm-hmm.
in terms of being a good role model, I learned a lot from him.
That's awesome. Yep. I mean, that's right though. No matter where you at, you should always be trying to learn and expand
Hmm.
because that's how you build a bigger person is by
Yeah,
the knowledge. Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And, and I think there's sometimes a fallacy around leadership, but, um, I do think that, you know, sometimes, you put leaders in roles. It's not about carrying the title. It's about cultivating the talent that you are
Mm-hmm.
responsible for, the talent around you, right?
Exactly.
So you can't grow an organization off of one person. And
No, the
so,
people are the organization.
absolutely.
Without the people,
Absolutely.
then you have nothing. You just have a building.
Right.
I know one thing that I know that the servant leadership, but the biggest one thing I kind of picked out is that you are into community leadership and the mentorship. And so, like, is that just your local community, your local neighborhood? Is it an age group that you kind of focus on for the mentorship? How does that work?
So I do work with a formal program, but the mentorship is just really, a lot of it is in the day to day, the people I work with. And or someone asked me to mentor someone they know, or someone asked me to mentor them. I never say no to that. There's so many people that have kind of poured into me, and really took the time to me develop and grow. And it's kind of my way of giving back. And so I tend not to say no, but I do have to kind of pace myself. And, I think that's what it's all about. If you're given the opportunity to kind of, I've had the opportunity to do some amazing things. And
Hmm.
I have to believe it shouldn't be for selfish reasons. And if someone wants to know something, I definitely take the time. I get,
Gatekeep.
yeah, I try.
Mm,
I get emails on LinkedIn a lot, and I'll just respond and answer the question, or But I think that helps everybody around you grow. And
mhm,
honestly, I'd love the energy from other folks, that are wanting to kind of figure out what they want to do. And
mhm.
I think everybody's trying to figure out what they want to do right now. And
Yeah.
you just never know. Your conversation might help them, um, and it might help you.
Mhm,
I always learn from the people that I'm talking to, and so I always say that we are all, whether it's formal or informally, mentoring somebody.
mhm.
And I think the world it moves so fast. Sometimes we just have to slow it down to have some thoughtful conversations, and sometimes that is mentoring without calling it mentoring, right? Advising someone of something they should consider, or just a lot of times I'm just listening. Like,
Yeah.
they
Sometimes all
somebody just
people need. Yeah.
right, they just want to talk through their plan. I'm like, okay,
Mhm,
I don't know anything about being a biochemist, but I will listen. So, it, 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 it's just whatever the person needs at that time,
mhm.
you know.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
Just
there's
be.
no formalness around it at all. There's no formality or
Yeah.
around it at all.
Okay. It's barely just part of what you do
Yeah.
on how you exist on a daily basis. You're always there to help
Yep.
cultivate the people around you, help grow, uplift the people around you.
Yeah.
Whether
There's
it's
just
just
so many people that have been so helpful. There's another person I work with, Cheryl Mayberry McKissick. I could like call her and say, "Can I run this idea by you?" And she's amazing. And there are a lot of others as well. And they're just super responsive. And so I try to be the same for those that ask. I try to be the same.
yeah. I like that. And so, do you feel like with all everything you've done, all your knowledge in HR and recruiting, your leadership, your mentorship, is that what led you being honored with the Senate and the Congress? How did
Oh,
that come
oh,
about?
that was so there was actually and this person is amazing. So there is a the tech queen in Las Vegas, and she basically took, you should interview her. She is amazing. She
Mm,
took these group of kids and basically she boot camps them and teaches them how to code, and she places them in jobs, and
okay.
she's really built out a wonderful center. And so she brought me in to do some career coaching, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. But again, she was just looking for volunteers, and I said, yeah, someone put me in contact with her. So we had a mutual friend, and that mutual
Okay.
friend said, hey, you should connect with Tania. And we had one meeting, and it was like we were just like completing each other's sentences, and she's just doing amazing. She's an amazing human being. Detecting, yes. And she's been recognized in Las Vegas and received a number of accolades. And basically, she takes these kids in from all different communities, and
Hmm.
they're building websites, they're coding, and they're
Yeah.
doing all these wonderful things. And it was all through her vision. And so I was basically like the career coach per se. And that's
Okay.
how that came about. And I didn't even know she was, putting my name in for that
Okay.
award. But it was just a really great experience. But it also speaks to the energy of when you're just aligning all these people wanting to do some good stuff, what
Yeah.
comes out of it. And what comes out of it is what she's doing with those kids. Her center is growing, and they're using it as a model for other programs. And, she was in corporate and decided to kind of branch out and do something she was more passionate about, and look
Yeah.
at it now. So, yeah, that's where that came about.
Okay. That's still great. So, are you still currently doing that, or that's kind of like you're not really a
No,
part of that?
that was years ago. That was what was it, 5 or 6 years ago. So she's out, still building it. And actually what I did, I introduced her to my cousin who is actually doing somewhat of the same work. And so my cousin
Okay.
replaced me.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's just such, it's just such fun work, right? And so happened that my cousin in Long Beach was actually working on a similar project, and I said, "Oh my gosh, you got to meet, and I need to connect the two of you." And so I connected the
Yeah.
two of them, and they jazzed right away, like
Yeah.
old souls. And yeah, and so my
Okay.
cousin was like, "Yeah, I think I'm replacing you now." I was like, "Oh, okay." And so she's in
Yeah.
good hands. So yeah, my cousin Felicia is now working with her.
Keep it in the family, right?
It was just so funny. Felicia's like, "Oh my God, we were on a call for this for so many hours," and I was just laughing. So like, I know how that conversation. I mean, I wish I would have been part of the conversation because Felicia has that same,
Yeah.
their energy is the same, and their desire to kind of build the next generation and possibilities for these folks and these kids and jobs is just really high. And so I was just excited that the two
Hmm.
connected and the energy was so strong. And then my cousin said, yeah, my cousin Felicia was like, yeah, I think I replaced you. And I was like, yeah, I think you did too. So,
Yeah.
okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But at least they connected the same good energy. So
Yeah. They're doing great work. They're
it's a
doing
good
great
thing.
work.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a great story. So, well, like, what's next for you in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Wow. I don't know. I have no idea right now. Right now, I'm just enjoying the journey. I mean, my youngest is in college. I
Hmm.
have to kind of like, boss her around a couple more years to get her through college, and which she ignores me, by the way. But anyway,
Don't they all?
she just ignores me. I was like, I'm talking, right?
Yeah.
But right anyway. So I
I
know
just
you know
want
that
money.
story. Right, exactly. You pay tuition. So I don't know. I mean, you asked earlier. I really don't know. I'm just I'm being reflective at this time and just really
Hmm.
thoughtful of where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing,
Hmm.
and
You going with the flow.
going with the flow. I
You
am
in the
going with the flow.
you in the now.
I am in the now. I mean that
Hmm.
the feedback book really was kind of uh, it's like the one area I see people struggle, whether it's work or if I'm on a board or if I'm part of a community group as a volunteer, it is the
Yeah.
one thing that people just struggle with. And I really want to create something that people could just take
Yeah.
and apply. So I worked on that. I birthed this book out, and
How long
I
did it
don't
take
know.
you?
It took a while because some of it came out of my dissertation too. So I had a lot of
Mhm.
research. I had a lot of, because there was a lot of things. My committee was like, nope, nope, nope. Wait a minute, I just have 200 pages of that. So some of it is wrapped in theory, and some of it is wrapped in as well. It's just kind of the science behind feedback. I mean, there's actually a science behind it, and so it's a good wrapping of how people hear, why they hear, why they, some people are just polarized to feedback and why and things like that. But um, I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Why do you
think
think that? Why do you think people have a problem with the feedback? So why is that such a problem with people?
I don't know if it's a problem. I think there are some leaders that are good at the coaching style of giving feedback, and then there are some that are just yelling and screaming at someone is not feedback.
No, it's putting
Um,
tearing somebody down.
tearing somebody down is not
Mm,
feedback. The water cooler is not feedback, and the
no.
gossip chain that ain't feedback. But to really just sit down and have a thoughtful conversation, that's a continuous conversation. This is what's working. This is what's going well, and I want to see you successful, and I want to set you up for success. And here are some areas we need to focus on. That's a more thoughtful conversation, and then
Yeah,
follow
exactly.
up. How are you tracking? What
Hmm.
other resources do we need to identify? What questions do you have? But even more so now, the workplace, what I hear, from company to company is people want feedback. They want to know how can they succeed.
Hmm.
And then some leaders are kind of thrown in the role. Technically they're very good. Um, and they're uncomfortable giving feedback. And as folks have always shared with me lately, is that we're in a highly charged environment these days in society, and what's proper to say, what's not proper to say, how do you say it, how do I not offend someone? And so I appreciate that there's more of a thoughtfulness around how can I have a constructive conversation to help someone really understand and learn what it is that I need to share with them so that they can improve
Yeah.
and continue having a good career trajectory.
I definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with
Mhm.
that. So other than I know you're on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
Instagram, and Instagram is under the Leadership Wise, right? That's your name on Instagram, correct?
Yes, so my Instagram is the leadership wise. So THE leadership WISE
Mm-hmm.
is the Instagram for daily inspiration and positive thoughts and suggestions around how to be a good leader. And then I have a website, um, which I place a lot of blogs on, a lot of blog
Yeah,
articles.
like your writings.
And that's the leadership wise. I was very creative here. So it's the same
Yeah,
as my Instagram. They're both the leadership wise.
that's smart. So that's the
Thank
main
you.
two places people can reach you
Yes, and
and
LinkedIn.
find.
Of course, I'm on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
and it's your name on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
my name on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. Last thing I want to say, what would be three things maybe you could leave to the audience that could that would help them, grow, expand, heighten themselves in some kind of way.
Here's what I would say. I like to leave with a challenge, and that is if they work with someone that they don't know, take the
Hmm.
time to learn about someone you work with. Expand and step out of your comfort zones so that your world becomes bigger. It really opens up the world around those around you, around your environment, your workplace.
That's a
Yep.
great
Extend
challenge.
kindness everywhere that you can. I know
Yeah,
that one is like too fluffy for people like extend kindness, but take the opportunity to learn
yeah,
something about the people you work with or the people in your community.
yeah,
I think we're
yeah,
missing that.
yeah. Because you're right. Well, I mean, that's well said because I think people don't even get a chance to know people that's their neighbors is next to them.
Mhm. Right,
Hmm. So
right.
that's beautiful. All right.
Okay.
Well, this has been another great episode of Heighten Your Sixth Sense with Tiana Davis of Chicago, author, a great thinker, great leader, great personality.